This here is Napah, Zion Lexx, Saneter, the Apostle Zakir, and Yasha ben Israel chopping it up.
What I would like to do now is see if anybody got any questions, because it's going on 11. We get 2 hours of this.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Do another time, But I would like to see if they got any questions out there in the audience, and then we could probably close this thing down.
Yeah, can I just ask him a question really quickly?
Yes, go ahead.
What do you think, and you are the Hebrew who makes the metanetter and the connection with Kemet, and that's why I really admire your teachings. However, I want to get this on record. Would you say that the Torah, because I didn't even get to the Levitical laws and the actual layout of the temple, which is almost identical to the Kemetic temples, the temple at Karnak, and then looking at the layout of even just the temple of Solomon's temple, and I believe the one in the desert. Don't quote me about that at Sinai. Those are they're so similar to the layout. The Levitical layout is similar to the Kemetic layout, and a lot of the dietary laws, if not, I'd say 60 to 70% of the dietary laws are modeled after Kemetic priests, their laws. The way what they wear, the white linen, it's so much, there's so much. So I want to ask you, I'm saying that the Torah is founded on Kemet. Would you, and you know what? You can be as stern as you like. I'll mute out. Would you address that? And of course, I'm not expecting for you to say, of course. I'm expecting for you to not agree with that, but I want to hear from you after what I've said about the Levitical practices, the layout, the architecture of the temple, dietary laws, and so on and so forth. Why is that? Why is there so much of that in Kemet? I mean, in the Torah. Have you seen it? That's two questions. And the third question is, if you do see it, can you see where I'm saying that the Torah is foundationally Kemet? I'm going to mute out for you now, brother. Thank you.
Okay. So I definitively disagree on that last point. Definitively. I say that because I do museum tours here in New York City. When you go to the Met Museum, which is one of the largest repositories of Kemetic artifacts next to obviously the British Museum and then the Cairo Museum, then you have the Met Museum here in New York City. There's literally hundreds of thousands, Priest Jabari, Brother Jabari can tell you, hundreds of thousands of Kemetic artifacts at the Met Museum, and I've done well over 230 tours there. When you go into the Middle Kingdom Hall in the Met Museum, the Middle Kingdom Hall, right after the statue of Mentuhotep II to your right is a room that takes you into pastoral Kemet, but particularly in the Middle Kingdom period for clarity and exactness. In looking at that particular hall that shows you pastoral Kemet, you see artifacts of Kemetiu Egyptians fishing and them bringing it back to eat. They weren't bringing fish that were of a specific class, like how the Bible says you can only eat fish and scales. What they pulled up from the water is what they ate. It's right in the Met Museum. You can see it. Also, when it pertains to the other types of meat, land animals, pig was eaten as well. There's a lot of people who are New Age Kemeticists. I hate to even use that term. I don't want to be offensive to anybody, but there's a lot of people who are New Age Kemeticists that want to reinvent the wheel and act like, no, people of Kemet wasn't eating pork. Of course they was eating pork. That which is that which shall be. That which has been done is that which shall be done. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing new under the sun. People ate pork. Get over it. Even people in Kemet. So when you're in that hall, you see that there were things that were sacrificed and eaten that the children of Israel are not allowed to sacrifice and are not allowed to eat. So for them to now hear you say that 60% of the Torah's law, and to hear you also say that essentially the dietary law is all kemet, I would have to say that that is definitively wrong. Any Egyptian priest could tell you that when you look at the Hebrew diet as laid out in Leviticus chapter 11, and you look at Kemetic history and what they ate, it is not 100% the same. It is not 80% the same. It's not even 60% the same.
Okay, so thank you. Now, you're saying that they ate whatever they want, but in fact, the Kemetic priests, and I'm talking about the priests specifically. What we're doing is we're starting with the priests because, from what I know, obviously, the Torah, it's a new religion. It was a new modified religion. But when I say 60%, I'm talking about the foundation of it, meaning restricting diet. And in fact, they did not eat whatever fish they want. They were, according to Herodotus, the Levitical priests were restricted from eating a lot of different types of fish. The reason, not Levitical, excuse me, the Kemetic. Now I'm saying the Kemetic priests, hear me out, because when the Exodus took place and they migrated out of Kemet, the laws were, in a sense, extended to the general population. But at its core, at its foundation, it begins with the temple and it begins with the priests. So the priests were not allowed to eat pork. They were not allowed to eat a lot of different fish. Let me give a background. You can look into Herodotus and see. Again, I don't have the way to screen share this, but let me say this. They believed certain fish, like one fish was the one that ate the member of a star, so they didn't eat that type of fish, and it was restricted. It was a restriction on diet. Then they didn't eat the pig, because they said, okay, something about the milk of the pig and the pork, so they didn't eat pork. They would not eat any certain types of livestock if it had blemishes. They did offer livestock like cattle, and they did do burnt offerings. I'm talking about the Kemetic priests. So again, when I say 60%, I want to clarify myself. Foundationally, the Kemetic priest, and then on to the just a second, the Kemetic priest, and what am I saying? Saneter, I'm on my phone, so they had dietary laws, and then the dietary laws extended into the people. So going from Kemet to, just one second. Well, okay, sorry, Saneter was calling me. Anyway, he wanted me to wrap it up, but I'm just saying that I see otherwise. So if you look at that, that's where I'm going with that. I want to clarify and respectfully double down. I'm not debating you, brother. I'm just saying from what I've seen, the dietary laws, the Hebrews didn't have dietary laws until the Torah. But the Kemetic priest had dietary laws. And so when it became what I'm trying to say is, when they received the Torah, the Hebrews who exited out of Kemet, they started practicing and doing a dietary law, having dietary laws, and it came from Kemet. So that's what I'm trying to say. Let me say that again. They never had dietary laws until after they left Kemet, and the way they followed the dietary law. The first people who were doing dietary laws were the Kemetic priests. So you were right about the common, of course you're right. You've studied this for a long time. The common people, but once they left Kemet, they started following dietary laws like Kemetic priests follow dietary laws. And that's all.
I want to respond to that last statement because you said a lot. The Kemetic priests were certainly not the first, and they were certainly not the only people that practiced dietary laws. There are attestations older than attestations in the Middle Kingdom, which is where you mainly find what we're talking about, what priests eat. You're not really finding that in the Old Kingdom literature. That's why it's important when having conversations like this, we talk about sources, right? Because it's one thing to say that Herodotus is saying this, but we have to examine the sources that he's looking at too. And we also want to know what period of Egyptian history, right? If I was in Fudiji, I'd want to know, is it the first golden age, the second, or is it the third? If we go by Egyptology, I'd want to know, is it the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, or the New Kingdom? So that's important. So I'm not denying that the priestly class stayed away from things that the masses entertained. I'm not denying that. But the bulk of the people, which is why I said when you go into the Met Museum and you're in Middle Kingdom Egypt, you get past, Saneter's been in the museum with me too, when you get past the statue of Mentuhotep and you go through the door to the right, to your immediate left, you see the pastoralists, and people are saying, pastoralists? The people of Kemet, they're pastoralists? Oh my God, what is Zion talking about? Some of y'all need to go to the museum. Yes, you did have the raising of sheep and goats in Kemet. How do you think that one of the epithets and titles of Asar is to call him the Good Shepherd? I mean, where some of these comments come from, I have no idea what people are looking at, but you can tell it's like a romper room show for some people.
All right.
Focused.
Yeah, so we're going to open up the lines and see if y'all have questions. Y'all can come in now and ask the question. We got Apostle on the line. Apostle,
right, before you go, Apostle, I need to share this really quickly. This is on Ancient Egypt Online again, and I can put the link. It's just the take on Herodotus. During the pre-dynastic, because you asked when, during the pre-dynastic period, pigs were considered unclean in Upper Egypt, but were domesticated and they were eaten in Lower Egypt. Okay, let me finish. During the dynastic period, pigs were thought to be unclean in some areas and among the wealthier classes. Herodotus states that people who raised and ate pigs were shunned by archaeological evidence, suggesting that although technically unclean, pork was still popular with many poor Egyptians. So I agree with you, brother, and thank you so much. But here it even says that pigs were in Egypt were seen as an unclean animal to eat, and people shunned them, just like with the Levitical law. It says if you eat pork, you're pushed out of the congregation. So yeah, this is a great conversation. I'd like to have, go have more with you. But yeah, that's all I'm saying. That I'll say it again. The Torah is based on Kemetic practices, especially the Levitical law. It all came from the practice of Kemetic priests. That's what I'm seeing.
All right, peace, powerful Bill, brother. Apostle, we got you on the line. You on the call? What's up, brother?
Oh yeah, Apostle Zakane, I forgot about him. He's on this bill too.
Yeah, great show. Great show.
All right.
Yeah, man. I mean, this was a great show. The part you did excellent. Zion, you did excellent. Matter of fact, you like the guy in the New Testament said, Paul, you almost convinced me to be a Christian. You almost convinced me to take up modern Hebrew, man. You almost convinced me to learn modern Hebrew. Because that was interesting, man. I declare that, for me, a lion is a write-up.
Zion is a beast when it comes
to you know about that.
Zion is a beast when it comes to the Hebrew. I haven't seen none of y'all, even you, Apostle, break it down the way he know how to go in and go into the blue letter. I ain't seen none of y'all go in the way they do it. Go ahead.
That's the difference from a professor.
Right.
Zion is a teacher in college. He's a professor, man. You know, I got a degree. I don't have that. I never taught. I went to college. I never taught college. So, you know, and he even showed that the R really is the first letter in the word lion. I like that because the radio brought that out. The word lion is A-H. R-A-Y-A. So, you know, but it's cool. I enjoyed that, man. But I do got a question for you, Zion. Use my voice. I still got COVID. So,
you got Apostle still trying to throw that Lashawan Kadesh in there.
excuse the voice. Would you agree that there are certain tenets as long as somebody that's a Christian, somebody that's an Israelite, somebody that's a Muslim, somebody that's even Phoenician, there are certain tenets that you have to accept. And there cannot be no ambiguity about these particular tenets. The first 3 commandments about not having no God before God, not making any engraved images, not bowing down to him and not worshiping him. In Christianity, they believe that either Christ is God, or rather that's the Trinity, or rather that he is God, not the Trinity, but they still believe in the virgin birth, Christ is God as a Christian. So as a Muslim, they believe in the teachings of Allah. Would you agree with that?
Loosely. I say loosely because there's some areas that I disagree with. But again, where we perfectly agree is that the laws of the Torah are unique and uniquely given to Israel. There are many laws given in the Torah which are unique to the Israelite experience that you don't find in other parts of the world. 8th-day circumcision. Yeah, but the people of Kemet were being circumcised. Yeah, but not on the 8th day. Circumcision marked the entrance into the priesthood. Kemetic priest word make priests from the womb. In the Bible, the children of Israel are deemed priests from the womb. Huge difference. So it occurs on the 8th day. So there are several practices, and I mean, I could literally do an entire lecture, and I'm more than willing to do an entire lecture, and if need be, even a debate, to show and prove that the laws of the Torah are unique to Israelites, and although we do have some commonality with other cultures, the vast majority of Torah laws are unique to the children of Israel. That would be an easy win, and I would love to have that conversation on a greater stage. I wouldn't mind doing that at all. I also have my screen share open because people act like they don't read. I have a picture of the Met Museum showing Egyptians as pastoralists. It's right on my screen if you allow my screen share to show.
I don't see nothing, Zion. You ain't sharing it yet.
I'm having a hard time hearing them.
All right, I see it.
It's on the big screen?
Yes, it's there now.
Okay. This is the hall in the Met Museum where you see the rearing of animals. This is actually a procession, this particular scene, but in that hall is dealing with how Egyptians live from day to day. So in that hall, you also see images and artifacts of Egyptians raising sheep and goats. They did eat those things, all right? Not in all periods of Egypt, Egyptians did embrace certain types of food. That's why it's important when you talk about ancient Kemet to know what particular period in Egypt you're talking about. An Egyptologist in Egypt is not a blanket statement. There are Egyptologists that specialize in Old Kingdom Kemet because it's different from the rest. There are Egyptologists that specialize in Middle Kingdom Egypt because it's different than the rest. There's Egyptologists that specialize in New Kingdom Egypt because it's different from the rest. Even in the Kemetic conscious community, there are teachers in this community here, Kemetic teachers, that have a stronger affinity to the Old Kingdom or the First Golden Age, who have a stronger affinity to the Middle Kingdom or the Second Golden Age, who have a stronger affinity to the Third Golden Age or the New Kingdom. So, speaking of Kemet, you always have to emphasize the period you're talking about. That's important.
Okay. Do you have another question, Apostle?
Yeah, this is for Napah. But I was wondering, Napah, what was that scripture in Genesis 15 when you were saying she looked after the one that looked after her? Was that 15? What?
It's 16, verse 13 and 14. Can you hear me?
Yeah, he hear you.
The different translations.
Say that again, Apostle.
Ask Zion if he can pull that scripture up in the Bible where it shows the parallel translations. Because I wanted the part to see that only the King James use that wording as far as look after. The rest of the translations use the word see. The one I see, who sees me. Not looked after as in taken care of, but as in when he said, when he used the Hebrew, that it said to I see the one that sees me.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is the King James does say, I looked after the one that looked after me. But what I'm saying in that translation, it means to see the one that sees me, not take care of. Look after, look at. I'm looking at the one who's looking at me. The other translations clears that up, whereas the King James doesn't. If you pull it up in the Bible and look at the parallel, you can see the different scriptures that speak on that particular text. And they use the word, I see the one that sees me.
All right, brother, you should be drinking some water. Try to save your voice, brother, so you can come back strong. We need you back here strong, brother.
Yeah, I'm taking care of it, man. I just wanted to get these questions in. She can look at that if she wants. But the other translations do clear that up. Just like John Lexx cleared it up where he said, I see the one that sees me. Not as far as I took care of the one that took care of me.
Okay, all right, thank you. Stay on the line. Hey, peace and black power. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Yasha Ben Israel from Detroit. Shalom, shalom.
All right, my man, Yasha Ben Israel. What's going on, brother? We got an Old Testament in here and a New Testament. What's up, Yasha?
What up? Hey, I like to say a nice job, render a nice job, well done to Zion Lexx. He taught the language very well, and he did a very, very good job in doing so. I have a question for Zion Lexx about something a little different though. I wondered, did you see the show the other day when we was talking about myths and things of that nature? When I define the term myth, okay, I define the term myth as a traditional story passed down from generation to generation that talked about the origin of mankind and woman, and pretty much talked about how things came to be, as well as having a God figure or a supreme being in it. That is the very first definition of every definition in every dictionary that I see. When you see the definition that where it is saying that myth is something like false or made up or a false idea generally accepted, that's usually the second, third, and sometimes fifth and sixth definition, depending on how good your dictionary is. I received a lot of slack from brothers when Saneter asked me, were there myths in the Bible? Considering the Bible is from Genesis to Revelation, not just from Genesis to Malachi. We're talking about Bible. Would you say that I was wrong for agreeing with that there's myths in the Bible?
Hold on. Let me unmute you. Go ahead, Zion. You good?
Not only are you not wrong for saying that, but you have the top Kemetic priest on HOK, Jabari, who I love his explanation the most. I can even quote him verbatim. He says, history is something that once occurred, and mythology is something that always happens. And so when we speak of mythology, mythology isn't some inherent fallacy or false doctrine that we need to stay far from. Mythology is extremely important. There's not a single story in the world that doesn't begin with a mythology. Mythology at its base denotes a story that's told. Because not every story that's told is accompanied with facts and evidences to solidify and validate them as historical events, that is the reason why mythology or stories can have a bad connotation. But mythology in and of itself is not a bad terminology to an intelligent person. Intelligent people understand that mythology is the telling and retelling of stories and, more importantly, traditions. You don't have a single tradition, especially for people who love out their African tradition. You don't have African tradition without mythology. So it's silly to say, oh, the Bible is just mythology. What the hell do you think African tradition is?
Right. What I was doing there when I did that, a lot of brothers were saying that I was fueling the ops. They called, the Kemetics, the ops. I call us all brothers. But they called brothers the ops, and they said that I was fueling the ops, against us. When in all fairness, what I was doing was taking that whipping stick away. That's what I was doing, because a lot of Israelites get upset and they get bent out of shape when you call their practices and their beliefs or their Bible a myth. But when I educated them on what the word myth truly means on both sides, that word can no longer be used as a whooping stick. Neither should you be pained by somebody using that word.
I'll say something to you before you leave, and I don't want you to ever forget that I said this to you. Mythology was the European way to discredit African history. African history was mostly told and retold through mythology. Mythology as a terminology mainly employed by the Western Europeans, in my opinion, is misappropriated today to downplay the veracity of African tradition, culture, and history. Because Europeans are absent in the ancient world, and the world that they come into is a well-attested world, where things are beginning to be heavily documented. So they say, oh, we have facts, but that ancient world, they don't have facts. Everything they have is mythology. So we don't want to fall in the boat of not respecting mythology, because mythology is basically the telling and retelling of stories, which you don't have African tradition unless you have mythology.
Dig it. That's all I had to say, man. Good job today, Doc.
All right.
Let me say something on it before you hang up. Yasha, how you doing, brother? I'm all right. How about you? I'm good, but let's mention what it was said, because Saneter asked you a very specific question. He asked you, was Moses a myth? And you said yes. The Moses story is a myth. As in, it didn't really happen. So that was the question. Well, let's not say. Let me finish. Let's not say that you were saying, are there myths in the Bible?
Can you read some text message?
You actually said that the Moses story was a myth. So maybe Zion want to have something else to say on that. Well, I don't know. Well, I'll say
all right,
this.
Apostle, man, you're trying to start some mess up in here, Apostle.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying the chat is even saying it. They're not saying it. Right. And I did say that. I think that.
All right, y'all, hold on, because I don't want to keep my brother here that long. Hold on. I don't want to keep my brother here that long. He been here. He got other things he got to do. And what I want to do is I would like to allow my brother to close this thing out. And
Yes.
and that'll be it. So I want to thank everybody for participating as well. Thank you, Apostle. Man, sit back, get your throat right, brother. Come on, brother. We need you strong. We need you strong up in here. Hold on. We need.
There it is, y'all. Peace. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Peace and love. Shalom wa ohib.